The data streams coming in from the remote monitoring stations were unlike anything the Xolothian Science Council had ever seen before. Sensor readings spiked and fluctuated wildly, registering anomalies that challenged the very foundations of their understanding of the physical universe. "This cannot be possible," whispered Xyloth, the head of the Council's Astrophysics Division, as he reviewed the sensor logs. "The readings are nonsensical. They violate every law we know." Around the table, the other council members shifted nervously, shooting anxious glances at one another. For eons, the Xolothians had prided themselves on their mastery of the cosmos, their ability to predict and control the very fabric of reality. But now, confronted with phenomena that seemed to defy all logic and reason, they found themselves at a loss. "Play the recordings again," commanded Xyloth, his normally calm demeanor betraying a hint of desperation. As the holographic displays flickered to life, the council members watched in stunned silence as the sensor data unfolded before them. At first, everything appeared normal. The usual background radiation, the familiar drift of celestial bodies, the faint pulses of distant stars. But then, without warning, the readings went haywire. Energy readings spiked. Gravity fields warped, and space itself seemed to distort and bend in ways that defied all understanding. "Look at those waveforms," breathed Xyloth, his fingers tracing the jagged, erratic lines on the screen. "They're unlike anything we've ever encountered. It's as if the very laws of physics are being rewritten before our eyes." The other council members murmured in agreement, their expressions a mixture of fascination and dread. For if the laws of physics could be so casually disregarded, what did that mean for their entire worldview, their very understanding of the universe? "Where is the source of these disturbances?" asked Xyloth, his gaze scanning the star charts projected around the room. "Several light years from our position. In the Velstar system," replied one of the junior scientists, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "The readings are centered around a small, unremarkable planet. Designation Ter 3. Xyloth frowned, his brow furrowing in concentration. Ter 3. That's an uncharted world, isn't it? Not part of any known interstellar civilization." The junior scientist nodded. "That's correct. Our records indicate it's a Class M planet with a primitive pre-Fel civilization. We've been monitoring it for some time, but the inhabitants have shown no signs of technological development beyond their own planetary system." A hush fell over the council chamber as the implications sank in. If a backwater, pre-Eftel world was the source of these mind-bending anomalies, what did that mean for the Xolothian civilization and for the very foundations of their scientific understanding? "We must investigate this immediately," Xyloth declared, his voice carrying a sudden urgency. "Dispatch a survey team to Terthria at once. I want a full report on the situation within the next solar cycle." As the council members began issuing a flurry of orders and dispatching subspace messages, Xyloth leaned back in his chair, his mind racing with 1,000 unanswered questions. What could be happening on that insignificant little world to cause such profound distortions in the fabric of reality? And what did it portend for the future of the Xolothian civilization? And indeed, for the entire known universe? The Xolothian survey ship emerged from hyperspace, its sleek, graceful form drifting silently towards the small, blue-green planet at the center of the Velstar system. On the bridge, the team of scientists and technicians sat huddled over their instruments, their eyes fixed on the readouts with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "Initiating detailed sensor sweeps," announced Xyloth, the ship's senior science officer. "Prepare for data analysis." For several long minutes, the bridge was filled with the steady hum of the ship's systems as the sensors probed the planet below. Then, suddenly, the readings began to fluctuate wildly, just as they had in the sensor logs back on Xoloth. "By the great anomaly," breathed Xyloth, his eyes widening in disbelief. The distortions are even more pronounced here. I'm detecting. I'm detecting. He trailed off, unable to find the words to describe what the instruments were telling him. The other crew members leaned in, their faces pale with growing apprehension. "What is it, Violates?" asked the ship's captain, his voice taut with tension. "What are the sensors detecting?" Violates swallowed hard, his fingers flying across the console as he crossed. Referenced the data. The spatial geometry is being warped in ways that shouldn't be possible. Gravity, time, even the very structure of the universe itself. It's all being distorted. And the source is on the planet's surface. A hush fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. If an insignificant Class M world could bend the fundamental laws of reality, what did that mean for the balance of power in the known universe? And what would happen if such technology fell into the wrong hands? "We must make contact with the inhabitants immediately," the captain declared, his tone brooking no dissent. "Prepare a landing party. I want a full assessment of the situation on the ground." As the crew scrambled to carry out the orders, Violates couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. Whatever was happening on that planet, it was unlike anything the Xolothians had ever encountered before, and he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they were woefully unprepared to face the challenges that lay ahead. The Xolothian landing party materialized on the surface of Trithria, their advanced exosuits shimmering in the golden light of the planet's twin suns. All around them, the landscape was a tapestry of lush forests, rolling hills, and sparkling bodies of water, a vibrant, thriving world teeming with life. "Fan out and begin your scans." The team leader, a seasoned explorer named Xirax, commanded. "I want a full report on the planet's resources, climate, and indigenous life forms." As the other scientists spread out, Xirax turned his attention to the sky, searching for any sign of the anomalies that had drawn them here. At first, he saw nothing out of the ordinary, just the familiar stars and celestial bodies he had studied since childhood. But then, his sensors detected a faint distortion in the air, a subtle wavering that sent a chill down his spine. "What, in the name of the great anomaly?" he murmured, his eyes narrowing in concentration as he tried to pinpoint the source of the disturbance. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught his eye, and he whirled around to see a strange, winged creature soaring overhead. It was unlike any animal he had encountered before, its form seemingly shifting and blurring as it moved through the air. "Interesting," Xirax muttered, his fingers tapping rapidly on his wrist console as he scanned the creature. The readings are anomalous, almost as if the very laws of biology are being bent around it. As he watched, the creature banked and circled, its movements growing more erratic and unpredictable with each passing moment. Xirax felt a growing sense of unease, a nagging suspicion that he was witness to something far more profound than a simple biological curiosity. "Team, report in," he barked, his voice sharp with urgency. "Have you detected any other signs of the distortions we observed from orbit?" One by one, the scientists responded, their voices tinged with a mix of awe and trepidation. The plant life is exhibiting strange growth patterns, almost as if it's reshaping the landscape. The water currents are behaving in ways that defy all hydrodynamic models. The ambient radiation levels are fluctuating wildly, and I'm detecting temporal anomalies that are disrupting the flow of time itself. Xirax felt his heart sink as the reports poured in. Whatever was happening on this world, it was far beyond anything the Xolothians had ever encountered before. The very fabric of reality seemed to be unraveling, and they were powerless to stop it. "We need to establish contact with the indigenous population immediately," he said, his voice firm and resolute. "They may hold the key to understanding these distortions. Fan out and search for any signs of intelligent life." As the team fanned out across the alien landscape, Xerax couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. If the Exolothians weren't able to comprehend the forces at work on this world, what hope did the primitive inhabitants have of controlling them? And if these anomalies continued to spread, what would that mean for the delicate balance of power in the known universe? Harlon had always known that there was something special about the world he called home. From a young age, he had been fascinated by the strange phenomena that seemed to defy all logic and reason. The way the trees would seemingly shift and twist before his eyes. The way the very air seemed to shimmer and distort in the sunlight. But it wasn't until he started exploring the wilderness beyond his small village that he truly began to understand the true nature of the world he inhabited. Deep in the ancient forests, he stumbled upon ancient ruins that defied all conventional archaeological models. Their alien architecture and technology, seemingly beyond the capabilities of any known human civilization. And then, one fateful day, he encountered something even more extraordinary. A shimmering, translucent entity that seemed to float effortlessly through the air, its very presence causing the very fabric of reality to warp and distort around it. What? The entity had regarded him with a strange, alien intelligence, its form shifting and blurring, as if it were composed of pure energy. And then, without a word, it had simply vanished, leaving Harlon alone in the forest, his mind reeling with the implications of what he had witnessed. From that day on, Harlon had devoted himself to understanding the true nature of his world, delving deeper and deeper into the mysteries that lurked beneath the surface of everyday reality. He studied ancient texts, deciphered lost languages, and explored the farthest reaches of the wilderness, all in pursuit of answers to the questions that burned within him. And now, as he stood in the clearing, watching the strange, winged creatures soar overhead, he couldn't help but feel a sense of both awe and trepidation, for the distortions he had witnessed were unlike anything he had ever seen before, and he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they were a harbinger of something far more profound and unsettling. Steeling his nerves, Harlon stepped forward, his eyes scanning the clearing for any sign of the strange, alien visitors he had heard rumors about. If they had come to his world, he knew that he had to find them, to learn what they knew about the forces that were shaping his reality. And so, with a deep breath, he set out into the forest, his mind racing with 1,000 unanswered questions and a growing sense of both excitement and dread. Xerax frowned as he studied the readings from his wrist console, his brow furrowed in concentration. The anomalies were even more pronounced at ground level, with the very structure of space, time seeming to twist and distort in ways that defied all known laws of physics. "This is unprecedented," he murmured, his fingers tapping rapidly as he referenced the data. The level of spatial and temporal distortion is off the charts. It's as if the very fabric of reality is being. Around him, the other members of the landing party were similarly transfixed, their faces etched with a mixture of fascination and unease. They had all been trained to confront the unknown, to push the boundaries of scientific understanding. But nothing in their experience had prepared them for the sheer scale and complexity of the phenomena they were now witnessing. "Have you been able to determine the source of the disturbances?" asked the ship's captain, his voice carrying a note of tension. Xerax shook his head slowly. "Not definitively, no. The anomalies seem to be emanating from multiple locations across the planet's surface, with no clear point of origin. It's as if the entire world is infused with these alterations to the fundamental laws of physics." The captain's expression darkened, his eyes narrowing as he contemplated the implications. "Then, we must make contact with the indigenous population immediately. If they have the ability to manipulate the very fabric of reality, we need to understand the full extent of their capabilities and the potential threat they pose to the Exolothian civilization." Xerax nodded, his mouth set in a grim line. "Agreed. I've already dispatched teams to search for signs of intelligent life. If we can establish communication with the natives, perhaps we can learn the source of these distortions and find a way to bring them under control. The captain's expression darkened further, and he turned to face the rest of the landing party. His voice weighted with the gravity of the situation. Time is of the essence, my friends. The very stability of our universe may hang in the balance. We must act quickly and with the utmost caution. As the team prepared to fan out across the alien landscape, Zyrax couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. What they were confronting here was unlike anything the Xolothians had ever encountered before. A force that seemed to defy all logic and reason, and that threatened to unravel the very fabric of their reality. And he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that no matter what they did, they might not be able to stop it. Harlon moved quietly through the forest, his eyes scanning the undergrowth for any sign of the strange alien visitors he had heard about. The air around him seemed to shimmer and distort, and he could feel the very ground beneath his feet shifting and trembling, as if the world itself was alive and restless. As he pressed deeper into the ancient woods, he began to notice strange anomalies all around him. The trees seemed to twist and contort, their branches bending and swaying in ways that defied the laws of nature. The birds that flitted through the canopy above appeared to flicker and blur, their forms shifting in ways that made his eyes hurt to look at them. And then, up ahead, he caught a glimpse of something that made his heart leap, a shimmering, translucent figure, hovering in the air just a few meters away. Harlon froze, his breath caught in his throat as the entity turned towards him, its alien presence sending a shiver down his spine. For a long, tense moment, the two of them simply stared at each other, each sizing the other up. Harlon could feel the entity's strange alien intelligence probing at the edges of his consciousness, and he fought the urge to flee, steeling his nerves and holding his ground. Then, to his surprise, the entity seemed to relax, its form settling into a more stable, humanoid shape. A sense of curiosity and recognition, perhaps, radiated from it, and Harlon felt the tension in his muscles begin to ease. You're not from this world, are you?" he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The entity seemed to consider his words, then inclined its head in a slow, deliberate nod. Harlon felt a rush of excitement and trepidation. This was the first time he had ever made contact with a being from beyond his own planet, and he couldn't help but wonder what secrets it might hold. I've seen the strange things happening in the world," he continued, emboldened by the entity's apparent willingness to communicate. "The way the trees and animals seem to change to defy the natural order, is that because of you?" Again, the entity nodded, its form shifting and rippling as it did so. Harlon felt a surge of curiosity and a growing sense of unease. If this being was responsible for the bizarre phenomena he had witnessed, what did that mean for the future of his world? Before he could formulate another question, a sudden movement in the distance caught his eye. He turned to see a group of strange, armored figures emerging from the forest, their advanced technology unlike anything he had ever seen before. Instinctively, he turned back to the entity, a pleading look in his eyes. "Please, you have to help me. They're not from this world either, and I don't know what they want. Can you protect me?" The entity regarded him for a long moment, its alien presence filling the air with a sense of power and uncertainty. Then, with a shimmer and a blur, it vanished, leaving Harlon alone in the clearing, facing the approach of the strange alien visitors. Zyrax and his team moved cautiously through the forest, their senses on high alert as they scanned the alien landscape for any signs of intelligent life. The distortions in the fabric of reality were only growing more pronounced the deeper they ventured into the verdant woodland, and the Xolothian scientist couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they were walking erasers. Zyrax and his team moved cautiously through the forest, their senses on high alert as they scanned the alien landscape for any signs of intelligent life. The distortions in the fabric of reality were only growing more pronounced the deeper they ventured into the verdant woodland, and the Exolothian scientist couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they were walking a razor's edge. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught Xerax's eye, and he whirled around to see a humanoid figure emerge from the undergrowth. The creature was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Its form seemed to waver and blur, as if it were somehow out of phase with the surrounding environment. "Hold your positions," Xerax commanded, raising his hand to signal the rest of the landing party. "I believe we have made contact with the indigenous population." The figure approached slowly, its movements graceful and almost ethereal. Xerax could feel the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end as the creature drew closer, its very presence seeming to distort the very air around it. "Greetings, stranger," the figure said, its voice resonating with a strange, otherworldly quality. "I am Harlon, of this world. What brings you and your companions to our humble realm?" Xerax took a moment to compose himself, his mind racing as he tried to determine the best course of action. "I am Xerax, of the Exolothian Science Council. We have come to investigate the unusual phenomena that we have detected emanating from your world." Harlon tilted his head, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Ah, yes, the distortions you speak of. I am familiar with them. They are a part of the very fabric of our reality, woven into the very essence of this place." Xerax felt a chill run down his spine at the human's words. "You mean to say that these anomalies are not of your own making, that they are a natural part of your world?" Harlon nodded slowly. "Indeed. The forces that shape our reality are ancient and mysterious, beyond the understanding of my kind. We have learned to coexist with them, to find harmony in the face of the unknown." The Exolothian scientist frowned, his brow furrowed in concentration. "And yet, the readings we have received suggest that these distortions are growing in strength, as if they are spreading like a contagion. Surely you must recognize the threat they pose, not just to your own world, but to the delicate balance of the entire universe." Harlon's expression darkened, and for a moment, Xerax thought he detected a hint of fear in the human's eyes. "The threat is real, Xerax of Exoloth. These anomalies are not mere curiosities, but manifestations of forces beyond our comprehension. They have the power to unravel the very fabric of reality itself." Xerax felt a chill run down his spine at the human's words. "Then you must help us understand them, Harlon. The stability of the known universe may hang in the balance. What can you tell us about the source of these distortions?" Harlon opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a sudden blur of movement caught their attention. Xerax whirled around to see a shimmering, translucent entity materializing in the air, its very presence sending a shockwave of distortion rippling through the surrounding environment. "The Guardians," Harlon breathed, his voice tinged with a mix of awe and trepidation. "They have sensed your presence, Xerax of Exoloth. You and your companions must leave this place before the balance is irreparably disrupted." Xerax felt a surge of panic, his mind racing as he tried to comprehend the gravity of the situation. "But we cannot leave, Harlon. The fate of our civilization may depend on our understanding of these Guardians, as you call them. We must find a way to confront this threat, to bring it under control." Harlon shook his head, his expression etched with a profound sorrow. "You do not understand, Xerax. The Guardians are not a threat to be conquered, but forces of nature beyond the comprehension of any sentient being. To challenge them is to invite the unraveling of all that we know." The Exolothian scientist opened his mouth to protest, but before he could, the shimmering entity rushed towards them, its alien presence sending a shockwave of distortion rippling through the air. Xerax and his team braced themselves, but even their advanced technology proved no match for the raw, unrestrained power of the Guardian. As the world around them began to twist and distort, Xyrax felt a growing sense of dread. Whatever happened next, he knew that the fate of the Exolothian civilization, and perhaps the entire known universe, hung in the balance. As the shimmering guardian entity descended upon Xyrax and his Exolothian landing party, the world around them began to twist and distort in ways that defied all logic and reason. The very fabric of reality seemed to unravel, as if the fundamental laws of the universe were being rewritten before their eyes. Xyrax felt a surge of panic, his mind racing as he desperately tried to make sense of the cataclysmic events unfolding around him. All of their advanced technology, their mastery of the sciences, it had all been rendered utterly powerless in the face of this alien, incomprehensible force. Beside him, the human Harlon stood transfixed, his expression a mix of awe and trepidation. "The Guardians, they are beyond our control," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the otherworldly rumbling that filled the air. "We are but specks in the face of their power." Xyrax wanted to protest, to insist that there must be some way to confront this threat, to bring it under the Exolothian civilization's dominion. But as the distortions intensified, warping the very structure of space and time, he felt a growing sense of helplessness and a creeping realization that they were utterly, hopelessly outmatched. In that moment, as the world around them seemed to fracture and collapse, Xyrax knew that the fate of the Exolothian civilization, and perhaps the entire known universe, hung by a thread, and he had no idea how they would ever be able to stop the inexorable unraveling of all that they knew. With a final, agonizing shudder, the very fabric of reality seemed to give way, plunging Xyrax and his team into a maelstrom of unfathomable power and incomprehensible forces. And as the darkness closed in around them, the Exolothian scientist could only wonder what unspeakable horrors might await them on the other side.